In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. A creed hammered into the soul of the galaxy for 10,000 bloody years. But what happens when a universe that worships eternal conflict collides with a civilization that learned to turn suffering itself into a weapon? No alarms rang when it began. No astropath screamed. No demon laughed. There was only a silence so absolute that even the warp itself recoiled. In the 41st millennium, silence is never natural. It is a wound, and this wound tore open above a forgotten system on the edge of the Imperium Nihilus. Reality folded inward like a dying star holding its final breath. Imperia loggers failed first. Machine spirits that had sung loyally for millennia went mute, their logic engines choking on data that had no precedent in the annals of Mars. Navigators clutched their third eyes and wept blood, for the warp did not flow, there it ended. As if something had reached into the immaterium and said, "No further." Then the sky broke, not with fire, not with thunder, but with a slow, deliberate peeling. Like old flesh, torn from bone. A vast scar opened in real space, rimmed with impossible geometry and light that bent the wrong way. Through it came structures that were not ships, not quite sleek. Organic metal forms that moved with predatory grace, ignoring inertia, ignoring fear. They bore no heraldry, no transponder codes, no echoes in the warp. To the Imperium, that alone was heresy beyond comprehension. On the shrine world of Athros Mina, Cardinal Hector Halvius was in the middle of a sermon when every candle guttered out at once. The congregation gasped as the great cathedral darkened, sunlight vanishing behind an unnatural eclipse. Halvius felt a pressure in his skull, not pain, but judgment. He fell to his knees before the altar of the god Impera, and whispered the only words that made sense. "Holy Terra, forgive us. Something has found us." Across the galaxy, ancient powers stirred. On Mars, within vaults sealed since before the Horus Heresy, Archmagos, Dominos Keponine, initiated forbidden protocols. Red-robed tech priests chanted Binhuric prayers as cogitator arrays screamed warnings in Messina. The data made no sense. The intruding force was not warp-based. It was not It was not Aldari. It was not even alive in any way the Mechanicus could define. It violates the prime axiom. Kaprunin. Intoned mechadendrites. Twitching. All things must obey causality. This does not. The Fabricator General demanded a name. After a long pause, Keponin replied, "We have intercepted fragments of self-designation from the anomaly's internal signals. A recurring term." He hesitated, an almost human gesture. Tenno. The first contact did not come through diplomacy or war. It came through absence. An Imperial patrol fleet translated into the affected system and vanished. No debris, no distress call, no warp echo. It was as if those thousands of souls had never existed. The administrator marked them as lost to clerical error. The Inquisition did not. Inquisitor Lord Severian Threx stood aboard the black ship Sanctum Dolores, gazing into the starless void where the fleet had died. Threx was old, his body rebuilt more times than he could remember, his eyes replaced with augmetic lenses etched with hexagrammic wards. He had hunted heresy, Xenos, and demons for over 3 centuries. This frightened him more than any of them. "The warp is calm," his navigator whispered from behind a veil of cables. "Too calm. Like a grave." Threx turned slowly. "Nothing that erases the warp is benign." He ordered a single probe launched an ancient archaeotech relic designed to transmit, even through empiric storms. Its feed flickered to life for exactly 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, Threx saw a battlefield frozen in time. Warriors encased in living armor stood motionless among shattered enemies that did not belong to any known species. Their armor flowed like liquid metal, reshaping itself subtly with each breath. Energy hummed beneath their skin, ancient and restrained. At the center stood a figure taller than the rest, crowned with a bladed halus, its face hidden behind a mask that seemed to watch back. This was not a Xenos incursion. It was not a demonic invasion. This was a challenge to the very nature of reality as the Imperium understood it. A silent, ancient power had arrived, a force that wielded the void not as a weapon, but as an extension of its will. The Grimdark just got a whole lot darker. What do you think happens next? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more Tales from the Void. The feed cut out. A single word was whispered. Abomination. But that was wrong. Abominations are born from chaos, from corruption. What had just arrived was something far older, and far more disciplined. Long before the Imperium of Man, before humanity crawled through the warp to escape its own extinction, there was another empire. Not in this galaxy, not even in this universe. An empire that mastered the void, not the warp, but the cold, merciless nothing beneath reality itself. They learned that suffering could be refined, weaponized. They created soldiers not from loyalty or faith, but from trauma shaped into pure obedience. They were called and they are long dead. What remains of them are the Tenno children, twisted by the void, their minds fractured and reforged, piloting living warframes that blur the line between machine, flesh, and myth. In their own reality, they are legends, assassins, ghosts, saviors, and executioners, depending on who tells the story. Now, through a cosmic misalignment that defied both science and sorcery, the Tenno have crossed into a universe that understands only one truth. There is only war. The Tenno didn't announce their arrival. Never don't observe it. They watched the Imperium burn its own worlds to deny them to enemies. They watched space marines chant prayers as they butchered entire species. They watched chaos gods feast on endless agony, bloated with worship and madness, and something ancient stirred within the void-touched minds of the Tenno. Recognition. This universe was familiar. On a ruined moon, a lone Tenno stood at the edge of a crater, gazing at the aftermath of an Imperial Guard last stand. Lasguns lay melted. Tanks were torn open like tin cans. Thousands of humans lay dead, their faces frozen in terror and faith. The Tenno's Warframe sleek silent, and possibly still knelt beside a fallen godsman. Through transference, the Tenno felt the echo of the man's final thought. For the Emperor, the Tenno tilted its head. An empire built on endless sacrifice. A god sustained by belief. Soldiers bred for obedience, not choice. It was cruel, inefficient, familiar. The Orokin would have conquered this galaxy in a century, but the Tenno were not Orokin. They had killed their masters. Suddenly, the stars shuddered as the warp reacted not with invasion, bat-wheat fear. Demons recoiled from regions where void energy bled into real space. Psychos across the Imperium screamed as their connection to the Immaterium frayed whenever the Tenno drew near. On Terra itself, beneath the Golden Throne, ancient mechanisms trembled. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Emperor of Mankind dreamed, and in that dream, he saw warriors who did not kneel, did not pray, did not burn with faith or hatred. They fought in silence. They fought with purpose, and they were coming. If gods are born of belief, what happens when something arrives that believes in nothing at all? The first act of this collision had begun not with war, but with understanding. And in the grim darkness of the far future, understanding is the most dangerous weapon of all. What do you think happens next? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more what-if scenarios. Thanks for watching. What does a god feel when it realizes it is no longer the most dangerous thing in the universe? The warp screamed long before the Imperium understood why. Across 1,000 battlefronts, Psychos collapsed mid-chant, their minds torn apart by something that did not belong to the image. Astropaths sent messages that arrived empty, stripped of all meaning, as if the void itself had edited reality. Even demons, creatures born of madness, hesitated. They weren't dissolved or burned. They were unmade. In the eye of terror, the Lord of Change paused, its many eyes blinking in confusion. Futures that once branched infinitely now terminated in absolute blankness. Its patron, Tzinch, the architect of fate, watched as destiny itself frayed. For the first time, he did not understand what he was seeing. "These threads," he murmured, "are not woven. They are cut." This was not an enemy. It was an anomaly. A chilling silence falls across the Imperium, a silence that began with a single scream. It came from a saint, Saint Corellia. The Unbroken, whose bones were said to heal the sick, collapsed mid-procession. Her sarcophagus shattered, her golden aura vanished, and her body, once a beacon of faith, lay cold and ordinary. It was a sign of things to come. Across 1,000,000 worlds, miracles failed. Saints faltered. The divine light of the God Emperor seemed to flicker and dim. The leaders of humanity panicked. High Lords on Terra spoke of heresy in the end times. They whispered of a new, terrifying power touching reality, something they called the Void. It wasn't the chaotic energies of the warp. It was something different, something discerning. It didn't mirror belief. It simply revealed what truly was. And in the darkness beneath the Imperial Palace, a consciousness stirred. The Emperor of Mankind, for the first time in millennia, was aware. He felt the Void's touch, and in its cold reflection, he saw the terrible irony of his own long failure. Meanwhile, on Mars, the Adeptus Mechanicus made a discovery that would shake their faith to its core. They had captured a Warframe, a strange Xenos construct. It resisted every attempt at dissection. When Imagos tried to interface with its mind, he was flooded with horrific memories, not his own. He saw children, stolen and twisted into living weapons by cruel masters. He saw endless cycles of war, obedience, and rebellion. His last, logged words were a desperate warning. They are not weapons. They are survivors. The research was immediately declared heretical, the vault sealed. But it was too late. Across the galaxy, these strange warriors, the Tenno, began to appear. They didn't invade. They intervened. Hive cities on the verge of falling to chaos were cleansed with terrifying precision. Genestealer cults were surgically excised overnight. They didn't conquer, they corrupted. And this silent judgment was more frightening to the Imperium than any war. On the shrine world of Ophelia the Seventh, an entire convent of the Sisters of Battle fell silent. When an Inquisition kill team arrived, they found the Battle Sisters kneeling, their weapons lowered, before a single, unmoving Tenno. Lucananus looked at the Inquisitor, her voice steady and calm, and told him what it had asked. It asked us why we suffer. The kill team demanded an explanation. It asked why we burn worlds in his name, she continued. Why we punished out with fire. Why obedience matters more than truth. The Cananus rose slowly, her eyes hollow. And we had no answer. The Tenno vanished. The convent disbanded itself within the week. There was no rebellion, no uprising, just a profound silence and resignation. In response, chaos unleashed its fury. A black crusade, led by a demon prince, bloated with the favor of all four gods, surged from the Eye of Terror. Entire sectors burned as chaos sought to drown the void in blood, plague, change, and excess. Warp storms howled, and reality itself began to tear apart. But the Tenno met them in the ashes of a dead system. For the very first time, the void and the warp clashed openly. Demons charged forward, their shrieks filled with blasphemies older than the stars themselves. The Warframes advanced in eerie silence. Where the chaotic fire of the warp met the stoic barriers of the void, energy simply annihilated itself, leaving gaping holes in existence that neither force could ever hope to fill. Demons did not die in the traditional sense. They ceased to have ever been. The demon prince roared, wielding a blade forged from pure, raw belief. Umbra stepped forward, alone. Their clash wasn't physical, but philosophical. The demon prince screamed of its divinity, its eternity, its right to exist through the worship and fear of mortals. In response, Umbra simply showed it the void a place devoid of meaning, gods, or justification. The demon prince faltered, its conviction wavering. Umbra struck a single, decisive blow. As the void consumed the demon prince, the chaos gods howled as one. A wound opened in the Imperium, not from an invasion, but from denial. Something had just proven that belief itself was not invincible. And the entire galaxy felt it. On Terra, the Emperor screamed through the Golden Throne, a sound that cracked reality across continents. For just a moment, he was lucid. "They are doing what I could not," he whispered into the minds of every psyker on the planet. "They are ending the lie." The High Lords of Terra fell to their knees. If the Emperor was no longer the sole pillar holding back annihilation, then what was the Imperium? Beyond Imperial space, the Necrons watched with cold, calculating interest. Sharek, the Silent King, recognized the signature of the Void immediately. It reminded him of the time before souls, before gods. "This," he declared to his court, "changes everything." The Eldari wept openly. If chaos could be denied, then perhaps Slaanesh could be starved. But hope was a dangerous thing, and the Void did not promise salvation. It promised only balance. The Tenno convened in the silent space between stars, their consciousnesses linked through transference. They debated not conquest or dominance, but responsibility. This universe was broken. Its gods were parasites, its people trapped in an endless cycle of faith and slaughter. The question was no longer, can we stop this? It was, should we? And far, far away, in the deepest depths of the warp, something ancient and hungry noticed the Void looking back at it. Something that had never been worshipped. Something that had always been afraid. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. The task would be harder now, but it would be theirs. The Void converged, folding space back into itself. One by one, the Tenno vanished, returning to the silent expanse. Beyond reality's watchers once more, not rulers. The galaxy exhaled. Centuries passed. History rewrote itself slowly. War did not end because war is born from mortals, but it was no longer infinite, no longer sacred. The constant grinding slaughter that defined an age began to recede, replaced by something far more manageable: mere conflict. Chaos cults, once a plague upon every world, became rarer, their whispers fading into the background noise of the cosmos. Demonic incursions, those terrifying breaches of reality, became the stuff of myth and legend. Stories told to frighten children rather than daily headlines from the front lines. The warp, that ever-present sea of madness, became a storm to be navigated with caution, not a malevolent god to be feared and worshipped in equal measure. And the Emperor, the Golden Throne, still stands in the heart of Terra. But it is quiet now. An eerie silence has fallen over the Sanctum Imperialis. Some say the Emperor rests, finally finding peace after 10,000 years of silent suffering. Others say he is finally dying, his impossibly ancient life fading at last. A few, in hushed and hidden whispers, dare to suggest something else entirely, that freed from the crushing weight of godhood, he is slowly, impossibly, becoming human again. No one knows the truth. Only one fact remains etched into the annals of existence, a truth that defies the very nature of this reality. In a universe defined by endless warfares conceived by Games Workshop in the late 1980s as 40,000, a grimdark reflection of humanity's darkest imaginations, something impossible happened. It wasn't victory. It wasn't salvation. It was intervention. The Tenno did not bring hope. They brought silence. A profound, universe-altering quiet. And in that silence, the galaxy was forced to look at itself. Truly look, for the first time in millennia. It was forced to decide what it would become without its gods, without its guarantees, and without its excuses. Because when beings who have already killed their own creators pass judgment on a universe built entirely on worship, they do not ask for faith. They ask only one thing. Now that you are finally free, what will you do with it? If this story moved you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more legends from the darkest futures.